Welcome to Sarcastic Spinster, where we look at the Pussy Hat Goddess and her minions and use deductive reasoning to try and figure out who she is, because love her or hate her, we need to understand her. So today I want to think through what the whole Kavanaugh nomination process reveals about the Pussy Hat Goddess and her minions. Because I think it's going to reveal a lot. The process has been interesting. We're going to start when Kennedy announced his retirement from the Supreme Court, and the minions of the Pussy Hat Goddess completely lost their shit. I mean, lost their shit. So, who is Kennedy? Kennedy was the swing vote on the usually 5-4 panel of 9 judges. It would swing 5 in one direction or another based on which way Kennedy would vote. The other 8 were pretty much evenly split between originalists who were going to stick to the Constitution and the principles of it, and those who took the view that the Constitution can be interpreted pretty much however you want to interpret it based on the whims of time. So, and of course, that is my completely unbiased analysis of that. Full disclosure, I'm an originalist. I like the Constitution. I like the Bill of Rights. I like the protections it gives me. So, Kennedy retired, and he had been actually thinking about it for a while, and it was really interesting that he chose now to retire, and I think he waited to see who Trump was going to nominate. And when Trump nominated Gorsuch, I think Kennedy felt confident that he could retire and a reasonable person would be replacing him. So, and it's also important to remember that even though Kennedy was the swing judge and he would go to the left or the right, he was nominated by a Republican. So there's no real way to tell how a judge is really going to rule until they get on the bench and start making their determinations. So the minions went into full-fledged panic mode. And the more I thought about this, the more I think it plays a huge role in the Pussy Hat Goddess's aggressive move to domination. She feels threatened. She feels really threatened. And that in itself is really kind of interesting. What threatens a goddess? So, but anyway, the minions lost their shit and went into just full-on crisis mode. Scare tactics immediately began. They're going to repeal Roe! They're going to repeal Roe! They're going to repeal Roe! Hi, baby. Say hi, Chinook. Okay. Down. Down. Good boy. And they began telling everybody that if Trump's nominee got on the bench, that all of a sudden back alley abortions with coat hangers would be happening all over the country. Which, of course, is total bullshit. Even if Roe got repealed, do you know what would happen the next day if Roe got repealed? Nothing. Not only that, but Roberts would never allow it. He is too worried about his legacy as Chief Justice, and he knows the country's not ready for it. Most pro-choice people know the country's not ready for it. Culturally, we're not in the right place for it. And so Roberts would not himself rule to repeal it. So there would still be 5-4 to uphold Roe no matter what. But the potential that at some point within Kavanaugh's lifetime, this getting repealed because he was on the bench is enough of a threat. Opening a door 30 years down the road frightened the goddess. That is interesting. So what happened then? We waited and waited and waited to see who, and I say it like that, and it actually happened pretty quickly, to see who Trump would nominate, and he came forth with Kavanaugh, and immediately, this is not somebody we can support. We could never support somebody with his record, blah, 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 came out. And it was also leaked that was a form letter that was already prepared, that all they had to do was pencil his name in. So it was basically who Trump nominated didn't matter. Did not matter. They were going to oppose him. And by they, I mean the minions of the Pussycat Goddess and the sympathizers. Because I know there's a lot of people in Congress that are serving more than just one master. There's a lot of members in Congress that are serving a lot of masters, and none of them are Uncle Sam. So they kind of revealed their hand. They showed it to the whole country. And I mean, a lot of people had immediately taken a side. If you were a minion of a Pussycat Goddess, you were automatically against Kavanaugh. If you were a hardcore Trump supporter, you were automatically for Kavanaugh. But there was a big chunk of the country that was in the middle. They were, well, let me wait and see who this guy actually is and how I feel about that. And that's a pretty significant voting block, the independent voter. And the independent voter got a good look at the minions of the Pussycat Goddess. Got a really revealing look. So then what happened? They shook their magic, Pussycat Goddess 8-ball, shake, shake, shake. What do I do? Nothing. Shake, shake, shake. What do I do? Nothing. Shake, shake, shake. What do I do? Nothing. So then I guess they had to go commune with the Pussycat Goddess, and we should know how that goes by now. It's, oh, great, Pussycat Goddess. I totally screwed the pooch this time. I showed the world who we are. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? So they needed cover. They needed a reason to not vote for him other than straight up politics. Because at this point, everybody knew that's what it was. Straight up politics. So then Dianne Feinstein gets a letter from Christine Blasey Ford, Dr. Ford, that alleges that Scott Kavanaugh sexually assaulted her when she was in high school, when they were both in high school. And what does Dianne Feinstein, who is a very, very devoted minion, what does she do? Does she care about this woman? As a servant of the women's rights movement, right? She should care about this woman and what this woman has been through. And she should start investigating immediately. She should have brought the letter forward, and a letter that specifically states that Dr. Ford wanted to remain anonymous. She wanted this to be confidential. And that is understandable based on the world of shit that has been thrown at this woman. I mean, she's been receiving death threats, and that's never acceptable. Kavanaugh's been going through the same thing. Never acceptable. So she's just sitting back, wondering, okay, what the heck's going on, Dr. Ford? And what is Senator Feinstein doing? Does she tell the Republicans that this has come forward? Does she give an opportunity at that point to say, okay, we need to do some investigation on this. Maybe while that's happening, we'll keep him on the list of potential nominees, but maybe let's just go back to the list and select somebody else until we can get this straightened out. No, that's not what she does. She doesn't tell anybody on the Republican side. And what I can gather about what she has done is sent out other minions to beat the bushes to come up with somebody somewhere who can corroborate this story or can come forward with another account. Because this guy's been through 6 FBI background checks that are looking for vulnerabilities that could be a national security risk. So they're looking for anything that can be used as blackmail material. I would think being a sexual assaulter would have come up. You think maybe? But okay. So, but didn't give anybody the opportunity to do that. In no way handled it responsibly. Because as a minion to the Pussycat Goddess, her loyalty was to the Pussycat Goddess. And what did the Pussycat Goddess want? The Pussycat Goddess wants to keep Roe versus Wade. So if they had done what they should have done, what is their constitutional responsibility to do as a member of Congress, and given Trump the opportunity to select another candidate, then the other candidate would have also been somebody who potentially 30 years down the road would repeal Roe versus Wade. So they would have the same problem. It didn't matter who was selected. Nobody on Trump's list could be allowed. So they waited and they delayed and they demanded, they, again, being the minions of the Pussycat Goddess on the Judicial Committee, and they demanded all kinds of documents that they were never going to read. I mean, it was thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of documents. And then they would argue that they hadn't had time to read them. And I mean, these are the same people that didn't read the 2,000 pages of the Affordable Care Act before they voted on it. So, yeah, you'll take over the whole medical or healthcare industry without reading, but you can't vote based on the guy's judicial history. I mean, come on. But again, they're counting on surface level analysis only. And I mean, I saw all kinds of things about people who were just outraged that the documents weren't being supplied. And I'm like, why are you outraged? They've already said they're never going to vote for him. What are... Yeah. So stalling tactics. And then on the last day, Senator Feinstein comes forward and says, well, I have these allegations against you. And we're supposed to believe that that was sincere, that she's really concerned about whether or not he is somebody who would sexually assault someone. We're supposed to think she really cares about sexual assault of women. And she kind of proved herself that she didn't care during the Bill Clinton era. You might want to go look that up. She'll care about you if you're a fellow minion. If you're not, she doesn't give a shit. Because again, we talked about this in a previous video. If you don't agree with them, you are just filled with hate, less than human, undeserving of consideration. I have a little problem with that. So, then all hell broke loose and the full-on circus began. And of course, people were criticizing everything appropriately with uncorroborated allegations from an anonymous source. Really? And this is where Senator Feinstein really showed that this was about Roe versus Wade and not about Dr. Ford and not about Kavanaugh. Because Dr. Ford's name was leaked to the press. And who had a copy of that? Who had copies of that letter? Almost no one but Dianne Feinstein. Only minions. Even if she'd shared it with anybody else, it was a pussycat goddess minion. And those minions released that woman's name to the press and threw her under the proverbial bus. Although I guess the pussycat goddess wouldn't drive a bus. They threw her under the family vulva. Okay, I just got a mental image of that. Okay. And I feel bad for Dr. Ford because this has not been an easy process for her. And it's not been an easy process for Brett Kavanaugh or his family. And it could have been avoidable if the minions had behaved like senators instead of behaving like minions. And the fact that they were willing to so blatantly display their allegiance to the pussycat goddess for all the world to see and show that their allegiance to the goddess was greater than their allegiance to the nation really says something about the goddess. Then, on top of that, they start bringing other allegations forward. And allegations that are so flimsy that they actually make Dr. Ford look less credible. The allegations were so transparent. I mean, the one from college, even the accuser freely admitted that she couldn't be sure it was him. We're taking that seriously. Why? And then the whole idea that he was running a gang rape ring in high school, really? Really? And this adult woman was there 10 weeks in a row and saw it all happen and kept going back and never reported it. Really? The only reason anybody would believe that is credible is because they desperately want to. And those accusations, which they had spent the 2 months between the time that they had received Dr. Ford's letter and when they told anybody else about it, they had spent, beating the bushes trying to find somebody else who was willing to come forward and claim an allegation. And this is the best they came up with. I mean, take that into consideration. And they threw it out there, not caring in the least that it would make Dr. Ford look less credible. All they cared about is that it would rile up the other minions who would accept it at face value. Because the minions have the minion mentality, and they have already handed their brain over to the Pussycat Goddess. They do what she tells them to do, either with the Pussycat Goddess Magic 8 Ball or the Oh Great Pussycat Goddess. They believe wholeheartedly in the Pussycat Goddess and her deep vagina wisdom. So they're all riled up. And that's really what the senators want. Get them all riled up so they'll turn out in the midterms and they can get control of Congress and they can stop any other nomination and I guess keep an open seat on the SCOTUS for a decade if need be. Who they serve is really clear. Now, what's really interesting about the whole thing is why is the Pussycat Goddess so scared? It is really interesting considering that it is not an imminent threat. In between now and the end of, Brett Kavanaugh's life, whenever that might be, any number of justices could retire or die. I mean, Scalia hadn't been on the court very long at all, only a couple of years. He was a George Bush appointee. So you just never know. Now, I will say that there is a small percentage of the population that actually believes that he was murdered and that he was murdered so that the balance of the bench could be changed by Obama and the legacy of the progressive movement and the deep state could be secured. And I think it was Scalia. Maybe it was Alito. I can't remember which one died. Sorry. And that's really kind of an interesting thought. And that really kind of makes you wonder, well, gee, how far is the Pussycat Goddess willing to go? If she feels threatened, will she go that far? Why wouldn't she? What's even more interesting is, why is the Pussycat Goddess afraid? Is Ro the source of her power? Or is it her beating heart? Is the Pussycat Goddess coming to terms with her own mortality? And is she even mortal? I wouldn't think she's mortal. She's been around since before Ro. Why wouldn't she survive after Ro? But the minions treat Ro like it's the One Ring, and Kavanaugh is planning to throw it into Mount Doom. The Democratic senators on the Judicial Committee were like the freaking Nazgul. I mean, total ring wraith. And it really kind of shows us that the Pussycat Goddess will play nice as long as she's getting her way. But she's a tyrant. And she's a tyrant who will throw anybody under the family vulva. Which I suppose means that ultimately, the only one the Pussycat Goddess cares about is the Pussycat Goddess. Is that somebody we want to be getting behind? I gotta say no. I gotta say no. If you're gonna go full on tyrannical dictator, no. Over a single issue. And that's just, it's a single issue. And everybody thinks that it really is this huge issue, Roe versus Wade, and I just don't see it. And because all overturning Roe versus Wade would do is send it back to the states. And unless you've got enough people in each individual state willing to repeal it, and it's not going to happen. We're not ready for that. Canine toxic masculinity, I'm telling you. Oh, when I did see something, Kavanaugh was really upset when he was given his testimony, and this has to have been hell for him, because he honestly believes he didn't do it. Now, I'm not saying that means he didn't do it, because what he believes and the truth are not necessarily the same thing. Just like if Dr. Ford really believes that it was him who attacked her, that doesn't make it true. But it's really hard on both of them, and he's been going through this waiting while the senators bicker and fight like children and playing a game of keep away. God. And they call Trump an embarrassment of the country to the world. I mean, come on. So he was upset and very emotional and cried, and the minions were all over Facebook and Twitter making fun of him for it. So, as a man, if you're manly, you have toxic masculinity. And if you show vulnerability, you're going to be made fun of too. So you're damned if you do and damned if you don't if you're a man and not a minion. And believe there are men who are minions. So not all minions are women and not all women are minions. Bill Clinton was a huge minion. And that was a big evidence that the Pussycat Goddess doesn't actually care about women. Because she protected him. Her minions would have sacrificed everything to protect him because he was the minion with the most power. So it didn't matter what he did to actual women as long as the Pussycat Goddess was protected. But then again, those of us women who are not minions are less than human in the eyes of the goddess and her group. And so, yeah, I suppose you can do anything you want to us. So that actually makes the Dianne Feinstein thing even more interesting. Because if she, and that could be really why she treated her the way that she did. So if Dr. Ford is not a minion, then what happened to her didn't really matter. I could release her name, doesn't matter. She's not a minion. She's less than human. She has wrongthink. She's not on board. What would be interesting as well is if Dr. Ford actually were a minion. Because I actually do believe that the minions would sacrifice each other in a heartbeat to protect the goddess. Because the only one the goddess ultimately cares about is the goddess. Sounds like fun at a party, doesn't she? And who knows where it's going to go from here. But I think it is going to be interesting to see what additionally we can learn about who the goddess is. Because she is showing herself more and more. And she is showing what is important to her. And it is really interesting of all the women's issues that she would go full scorched earth on this one for a non-immediate threat. I mean, I can see going scorched earth on an immediate threat. This is not an immediate threat. This would take years for anything to actually transpire. And she was still willing to go full scorched earth. So is this the only issue that's really remaining for the goddess? Is this the only sway she holds? That even if she were to disappear tomorrow, if someone were to stick a stake through that beating heart of Roe versus Wade and decimate her tomorrow, are there any other issues that she was really driving? I don't think so. And I think this is a desperate attempt for the Pussycat Goddess to hold her power. And what does a tyrant do when they think they're losing power? They go full on scorched earth. Because that's all a tyrant knows how to do. She doesn't know how to persuade. She doesn't know how to negotiate. She doesn't know how to influence, or she's run out of her ability to do that. She has put all of her chickens in the government basket. And the basket might get dropped, and the eggs just might get broken. And she ain't happy about that. I wonder if at some point they're going to do the whole Pussycat Goddess Magic 8 Ball. Shake, 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 shake. We're screwed. Okay, well, I think I'm going to wrap it up for today. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and share and subscribe if you would. Hashtag Pussycat Goddess. Something to think about.